Notifying superiors of a problem. This project was created as a partnership between the Refugee Development Center and St. Vincent's Catholic Charity Refugee Services to support the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act program. In this video, you will learn about communicating with your supervisor when there is a problem in the workplace. It is important to communicate about problems in the workplace so management is aware of problems related to safety, profitability, and to resolve issues among staff. In this video, you should learn about some of the problems that can occur in the workplace, who you should talk to about resolving a problem, and how to communicate with your supervisor and coworkers when a problem arises. There are several different types of problems that can occur in the workplace. We will focus on personal problems, problems with coworkers, and workplace problems. Types of personal problems may include things like childcare issues, transportation issues, being sick, schedule conflicts, problems due to the lack of language or hygiene. Problems with coworker may include morale, cultural differences, meeting deadlines, bringing outside problems to the workplace, disagreements between coworkers, stealing a coworker's lunch, and coworkers not following workplace policies. Workplace problems may include sexual harassment, accessibility, discrimination, faulty equipment, morale, sanitation, lack of supplies, stealing of company property, customers not following company policies. Personal problems are issues that relate to you specifically, and there may be little that you or your employer can do to help solve these problems. But your employer may be able to work with you to find ways to help you manage these problems. There may be times when you have to miss work due to unforeseen circumstances. This could include car trouble, trouble finding childcare, illness, scheduling conflicts, or other issues that affect your ability to do your job. These issues are things that our employer should be made aware of because they affect your work performance, but ultimately they are problems that you will need to solve on your own. For instance, if transportation is an issue because your car is broken, you will need to figure out how to get your car fixed or figure out another way to get to work. Your employer cannot help you. If there is an issue that the earliest bus does not allow you to reach the workplace in time, your employer may be able to adjust your work schedule so that you can work with a bus schedule. However, your employer may not be able to adjust your schedule either, and your employer may expect you to find another way to work. When a personal problem affects your work, there is no guarantee that the employer is going to help you solve it or be able to make accommodations to let you keep working in this job. Nonetheless, it is helpful to let your employer know the problems you are facing. For example, maybe your child's caregiver is on vacation for a week and you're having difficulty making other arrangements for child care. Your child's caregiver probably will give you some notice that they are not available during this time, so you can make other arrangements. If you do not have any other arrangements, you have a problem. The first step would be to notify your employer about the problem. You can let your employer know the dates that you will not have child care because your child care provider is closed. Second, you want to inform your employer how the problem is affecting your work. In this case, you would tell your employer that you cannot come to work during these dates unless you find alternative child care. Third, you should let your employer know what you are doing to solve the problem yourself. In this case, you can let the employer know you are trying to find alternative care, but you haven't found it yet. Finally, you can let the employer know how they may be able to help you solve the problem. For example, you can ask your employer if it is possible for you to have that time off, or if you can work a different shift so you can split childcare duties with another household member. The employer may not be able to help you, but they are aware that the problem exists. It is good to give as much advance notice as possible when these situations come up, so your employer is able to plan ahead. Another type of problem that occurs is when problems arise between coworkers. This can include problems like morale, for instance. Maybe there was a change in company policy and the workers are having difficulty adjusting to these policies. Or with cultural differences in the workplace, such as religious holidays. There could be a problem with meeting deadlines because one coworker hasn't finished their share of work. It can also be a problem when a coworker brings outside problems to the workplace and maybe they are talking a lot on their cell phone or even yelling at someone over their phone and it is disturbing to your work. Occasionally, there may be a disagreement between the coworker about whose responsibility it is to do a specific task. It would be a problem if your lunch is always missing and you suspect a coworker or person from another department is stealing your lunch. There can also be problems with coworkers not following workplace policies. Reporting problems in the workplace is common. A large part of a supervisor's job is to be aware of problems and to find solutions to them. Letting your supervisor know about a problem in the workplace is important for keeping the workplace a safe and healthy working environment. You may want to tell your supervisor about a problem to protect yourself. Maybe what you thought was a small conflict with a customer, or you got hurt a little while you were working. It might not even seem like a big problem at the time. However, the customer could come back a few weeks later with a complaint about how you handled the situation. Or the small injury you had turns into something more serious. By telling your workplace proactively, you are able to protect yourself. Maybe there was a problem and you came up with a good solution. If you do not share what you did, your contribution to the workplace may not be recognized. It is also a good idea to let the employer know about a problem. Even if you think you solved it, it could become a bigger problem later on. Furthermore, it might not be your job to solve the problem. Just because you are able to fix something doesn't mean that it is your job to fix it. It might be necessary to call maintenance to ensure something is fixed according to building codes or accounting has some specific procedure that needs to be followed. If there is a problem that interferes with your ability to do your job, you will also want to be sure that your employer is informed. As a general rule of thumb, it is much better to address a problem directly. Addressing problems with your coworker. When you encounter problems between coworkers, think how the problem is affecting your work or the workplace environment. Be prepared to explain what you think the problem is and how it is making your job difficult. Tell the coworker what you would like them to do, or what have you done already to solve the problem yourself. You may also let them know that if the problem continues, you will inform your supervisor. That might be the best approach. If after approaching your coworker and finding it is not possible to solve the problem, then you may want to speak with your supervisor. When you talk to your supervisor, Explain what you already tried to solve the problem with the coworker. If you are not comfortable talking to your coworker, you may want to go to your supervisor. When you tell your supervisor, explain that you haven't talked to your coworker and why you did not do this. Your supervisor may suggest you first speaking with your coworker, or they may handle the problem directly. If you have had a bad relationship with a coworker, try to focus on problems that are directly related to your ability to do your job and problems that negatively impact the coworker's workplace or the workplace public image itself. When trying to find solutions to these problems, it is important to consider the chain of command and maintaining good relations with your coworker. A typical chain of command to follow would be to first speak with your coworker directly. If that is unsuccessful, then you would need to report to your supervisor. If your supervisor is not able or not willing to solve the problem, it may be an issue to inform the management about. If the management cannot solve the problem, then you may need to talk to the human resource department. You may also want to consider your relationship with your coworker and your supervisor and speak to the person you feel more comfortable approaching. If you skip over speaking to a coworker directly, you will want to let your supervisor know why you did not first address the issue with the coworker. The supervisor may then suggest you try to solve the problem with your coworker, or your supervisor may speak with your coworker directly. Another consideration is when you should talk to someone about this problem. As a general rule, sooner is better. Try to inform someone before something that might turn into a problem turns into a much bigger problem. Even if you think you can solve the problem yourself, you might mention it along with your solution. Initially, you may try to solve the problem yourself. As you are trying to solve the problem, you may realize it is bigger than you thought, or that you are not sure how to solve the problem yourself. At that time, you should ask for help to solve the problem. Even after something seems resolved, it might not be over. It may be resolved incorrectly, or it may need further work to be fully resolved. It is still a good idea to report the problem to a supervisor so they are able to take any additional steps that are needed for the problem to be fully resolved. It is always in your best interest to keep someone in the loop about the problems you encounter in the workplace. For example, for the past few weeks, you have noticed that your coworker is spending a lot of time on his phone. His calls are noisy and are clearly not work related. The calls are distracting, and your coworker is not replying to your emails as fast as he used to. Clearly, this is a problem. You know the company policy is that you should not take personal calls during work hours unless it is an emergency, and you mention this to your coworker the first time it happens. However, your coworker has not stopped making personal calls, and it is becoming a problem for you because the coworker is being noisy in the office and he is not responding to your emails. The first one is a distraction, and the second one is slowing down your ability to do your job as fast as you used to. You might want to approach your coworker again by saying something like, "Hey Bob, I noticed you're taking several personal calls during the workday. Your calls are getting rather loud, and it is distracting me from what I am working on. Also, I noticed you are not responding to the emails as fast as you used to. Is everything okay?" Maybe Bob just tells you to mind your own business and does not care about what you have told him. This would be a reasonable time to contact your supervisor and explain what the problem is. Maybe Bob gives you a good reason for why he is distracted at work lately. Bob may have already mentioned the problem to your supervisor and was told to just do his best. In this situation, you might ask Bob if he could possibly take the calls in the stairwell because they have been getting rather loud. Bob begins taking calls elsewhere. You might also mention to your supervisor that your work seems to be slow because your coworker has been distracted and you are doing what you can to pick up the slack. Maybe Bob does have a good reason for all the calls and he says he will talk to the supervisor. But after a few days, you ask again and he still hasn't mentioned it. He also said he would take the calls in the stairwell, but he doesn't. His late work and phone calls continue to be a problem for you in the workplace. In this case, you might go to your supervisor and explain that there is a problem and that you have tried to resolve it with your coworker, but it hasn't gone anywhere. When problems in the workplace or between coworkers cannot be solved by yourself or with the coworkers, you may need to ask for help from your supervisor. Continuing with the situation with your coworker Bob, maybe nothing changed or improved since you told him about the problem. He is still taking several phone calls and he is not responding to your emails fast enough for you to do your work efficiently. The phone calls, while distracting, are not the main issue because clearly Bob is having a difficult time. However, the slow email response is negatively impacting your job performance. You are concerned because you are not sure you will get your work done fast enough, or maybe you are concerned because you are doing extra work to make up for Bob not doing his job efficiently. You might start by telling your supervisor that you notice Bob is not responding to your emails very fast, and when you told Bob about the problem and that you and your supervisor know about this slowdown. Your supervisor should take it from there. Sometimes the problem has already been resolved, but you should still notify your superior that it was a problem. You might just tell your supervisor what the problem was, how it was resolved, and that you wanted to be sure he was aware of the situation. Remember, some problems may have more complex solutions than the initial fix. Additional documentation may need to be completed. If a piece of equipment breaks and you can fix it, it doesn't let the owner know how frequently it may be breaking. In the workplace, you will be expected to follow certain procedures. These procedures are at times developed by a person who is not actually doing the job described in the procedure or a person who hasn't actually ever done the job that is described. As a worker, following this process, you may notice ways to do something more effectively or efficiently. If you think you can find a better solution to a problem, you should discuss it with your supervisor. You should not just make changes yourself without informing anyone. There could be reasons you don't know about relating the process, or certain steps must be taken for safety reasons. There will be times when you make a mistake at work. You might forget to do something, not do something fast enough, or break some equipment. When this happens, you should let your supervisor know what happened. Inform your supervisor as soon as you realize the mistake or confess when your supervisor asks if anyone knows who did something. Honesty is appreciated in the workplace. If you try to hide when you did something wrong, it will reflect poorly on you. Most employers are forgiving when mistakes happen, especially when you let them know. If you make a mistake, it is good to apologize. Say what the mistake was, what you learned from it, and what you will do differently the next time. In the U.S., there are laws that prevent your employer from discriminating against you on the basis of your race, sex, age, sexual orientation, gender orientation, religious beliefs, social class, among others. If you feel you are being discriminated against or harassed in the workplace, be sure to document it in writing what happened, when, who was involved, what was said or done, and where it happened. Try to be as detailed as possible and keep a record of this. You might start with reporting the problem to your immediate supervisor, but if the problem is due to your supervisor, then it might be necessary to go directly to someone in human resources. Human resources is generally the people who would handle problems with discrimination and harassment. When it comes to a problem in the workplace, there are also a few things you should be mindful to not do. First, don't keep a problem a secret. If there is a problem, you should let your supervisor know. Be transparent in the workplace. Secrets always have a way of coming out. When it is known that you knew about a problem but did not say anything, then you may also be viewed as part of the problem. Second, don't cover up a problem. If there is a problem, let someone know. For example, if you broke something while using it at work, just let your supervisor know. Don't hide it somewhere and let another coworker discover it. Third, don't blame a problem on someone else. If you are responsible for a problem in the workplace, just acknowledge it. Even better, let someone know as soon as you are aware of it. Fourth, if there is a problem, be clear that it is a problem. Don't just act like the problem doesn't exist. Finally, don't ignore a problem in the workplace. It is better to talk about it so it can be solved. Thank you for watching. For additional information, please see our other videos.